He left the divorce papers on the kitchen counter, right next to the half-eaten cereal bowl I hadn't touched since morning. No note. No explanation. Just a signature at the bottom and a sticky note on top that said, "Please sign before Friday. It's better this way for everyone." That was the moment I realized something inside me had snapped. You ever have one of those moments when your whole body goes cold, but your heart is still pounding so hard you can hear it in your ears? That's what it felt like. Like the air had been sucked out of the room. Like the man I'd built my life with, trusted, fought for, and defended, had just casually erased me with a ballpoint pen. I stood there staring at that piece of paper, still wearing my work badge around my neck. It had been less than 24 hours since my boss called me into his office and said, "We're letting you go, Sarah. Budget cuts." I'd smiled, held it together, walked out with my dignity. But when I saw those papers, that was when I broke. He knew. He knew I'd lost my job. I told him last night while crying in the shower. He even hugged me, said, "We'll get through it." And then this morning, before I even had coffee, he filed for divorce. It wasn't timing. It was strategy. I didn't know it yet, but that man, the father of my kids, had been planning this for months. That night, I sat on the edge of the bed we used to share. My hands were shaking so badly, I could barely hold my phone. He was staying at a friend's house for space. The kids were at his mother's. The silence in the house was unbearable. Then my phone buzzed. A message from my best friend, Lila. "Sarah, I didn't know how to tell you, but you need to see this." She sent a photo. It was him, Ryan, at a restaurant downtown, holding hands with a woman half my age. Smiling. Laughing. The date stamp was from last week. I couldn't breathe. My chest tightened until I thought I'd pass out. That's when I realized it wasn't just a betrayal. It was a setup. He wanted custody. The house. Everything. And losing my job. That was his perfect timing. The proof he'd need in court to say I wasn't financially stable for the kids. He'd been waiting for me to fall, so he could finish the push. The days after were a blur. Court filings. Lawyer consultations. Friends telling me to stay strong. But here's the truth no one tells you. Being strong isn't a single moment. It's a slow, painful crawl through humiliation. I remember sitting in that courtroom, hands folded in my lap, while his attorney described me as unstable and unemployed. Ryan didn't even look at me. He just kept that fake calm expression he always wore when he was lying. And when the judge awarded him temporary custody, citing my employment situation, I didn't cry. I just sat there, staring at the floor tiles, thinking about how my kids would sleep in his house that night, while I packed boxes alone. That was the lowest point of my life. For months, I worked 2 part-time jobs, tried to rebuild, begged for visitation. He made it harder every time. The kids have school tomorrow. They're busy. They don't want to come. I knew he was turning them against me. He'd always been good at that, twisting stories, making me sound irrational, emotional. And I'll admit, I was emotional. Who wouldn't be? When you lose your job, your home, your children, all within 1 month, your emotions stop asking for permission. But here's the thing about rock bottom. Once you hit it, there's only one direction left. The shift started quietly. I got a new job, nothing fancy, just an office assistant role. But it gave me structure again. Control. A reason to wake up early and dress like someone who mattered. Then one night, I got an email by accident from our old shared Dropbox account. A financial statement addressed to Ryan J. Walker but sent to my old email. It showed payments, big ones, to a consulting firm I'd never heard of, and one name stood out, Rebecca Lane. The same woman from that restaurant photo. That was the first piece of the puzzle. And when I saw that money trail, I felt something shift deep inside me. Not sadness, not anger. Something colder. Focus. He thought he'd taken everything from me. But he forgot one thing. I used to be the one who handled all his finances. And if he wanted to play dirty, he'd just picked the wrong woman to underestimate. The next morning, I printed the financial report and sat at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee that had gone cold long before I remembered to drink it. My hands were steady this time. No tears. No shaking. Just focus. Rebecca Lane. The consulting firm. And payments totaling more than $80,000 in less than a year. I worked for that man for almost a decade, not just as his wife, but as his unpaid bookkeeper, his cheerleader, his personal assistant. I knew the smell of every lie he told. And this one, it stank of guilt. I opened my laptop and logged into his old shared business account. He'd forgotten that I was still listed as admin, His arrogance was his weakness. Emails, receipts, contracts, all tied to Rebecca. She wasn't just some woman he'd met after the marriage. She'd been on his company payroll while we were still together. That consulting firm, it was a shell company. Her name was on the documents, but every invoice linked back to his main account. He was funneling money, hiding income to make himself look financially strained during the divorce so he wouldn't have to pay proper child support. That's when the anger finally turned into clarity. He didn't just betray me emotionally, he committed fraud. And if he thought he could bury me under legal papers and manipulation, he clearly forgot who handled every one of his spreadsheets, receipts, and tax returns for years. That night, I called Lila. "I'm not crying over him anymore," I said. Her silence was cautious. "Sarah, what are you thinking?" "I'm thinking it's time he learns who he messed with." I started gathering everything: emails, screenshots, printouts. I created a timeline that showed how the payments started right after he met Rebecca, and how his reported income dropped the exact same month. It took me 3 weeks. 3 weeks of pretending I'd moved on, of smiling at work, of keeping quiet during his smug little check-ins, when he dropped the kids off late and said things like, "They're doing so much better now, you know." He thought I was broken. I was just busy building my case. One afternoon, I went to his company's office, the one I helped him set up years ago, before my name conveniently disappeared from all the registration documents. The receptionist recognized me and smiled awkwardly. "Hi, Mrs. Walker." "Just Sarah," I corrected her, forcing a smile. "Is Ryan in?" He wasn't. But Rebecca was. She walked out of his office wearing a silk blouse and a confidence that screamed I got what I wanted. When she saw me, her expression faltered for just a second. "Oh, Sarah. I didn't expect." "Yeah, neither did I." I cut her off. "By the way, love the new office. The furniture looks familiar." It did, because I picked it out. Every damn piece of it. She opened her mouth to say something, but I walked past her, stopped by the door to Ryan's office, and whispered just loud enough for her to hear. "Enjoy it while it lasts." That night, I met with a family law attorney who specialized in financial misconduct. She listened carefully, flipping through the binder I'd put together. When she looked up, she said the words I'd been craving. "Sarah, this is serious evidence. If this holds up, not only can we reopen custody, but we can report him for fraud." I felt my throat tighten, not because I wanted revenge for revenge's sake, but because finally I could see a way to make things right. For months, I'd let him control the story. Unstable wife, unfit mother, financially irresponsible. Now I had proof of who he really was. I remember the first court date like it was yesterday. He walked in with that fake confidence, adjusting his tie, nodding to people like he was some kind of role model father. But when my lawyer stood up and began showing the paper trail, the transfers, the fake consulting firm, the hidden payments to Rebecca, his face went pale. He tried to interrupt. "Your Honor, this is completely irrelevant." My lawyer cut him off. "It's relevant when it shows financial deception during the custody evaluation, Mr. Walker." And in that moment, as the judge's expression hardened, I knew the tide had finally turned. After the hearing, he approached me in the hallway. His tone was low, controlled. "You think this will make them love you again?" I looked him dead in the eye. "No, this will make them see you." He smirked, the same smirk that used to make me crumble. But not this time. This time I smiled back. "Don't worry, Ryan. I'll let the truth do the talking." And for the first time in years, I walked away without looking back. The next few weeks felt like living in slow motion. Every court hearing, every document request, every side glance from his attorney, it all started to blur together. But behind that blur, something was shifting. The judge had ordered a financial review, and suddenly Ryan wasn't as smug as he used to be. He tried to play the victim. "Your Honor," he said one morning, voice trembling just enough to seem sincere, "my business took a hit. I was just trying to stay afloat." There was no deception. The judge looked down at the documents I'd provided. Pages and pages of bank transfers labeled consulting fees. "To your girlfriend's company?" the judge asked flatly. Ryan froze. "That's not. It's right here in the records." I'll never forget that silence that followed. Heavy, humiliating silence. He'd built his whole identity around control, around appearing perfect. And now it was unraveling in public. After that day, I started getting small victories. The court ordered shared custody until the investigation concluded. It wasn't full justice yet, but it was movement, a step toward balance. The The kids came to stay with me every other week. At first, they were distant, polite, cautious, like visiting a stranger. I didn't blame them. They'd spent years listening to his version of me. The lazy mom, the emotional mess, the one who gave up. But then they saw how I lived now. The steady routine. The quiet apartment with warm lights and their favorite meals waiting. No shouting. No fake smiles. No tension. Just peace. I remember one night my daughter, Emily, came into the kitchen while I was washing dishes. She said softly, "Dad said you didn't want us." I turned, wiping my hands on a towel. "He said that." She nodded. "But I don't think that's true." I knelt down and looked her in the eyes. "Emily, there's a lot your dad and I don't agree on. But I want you to know something. I never stopped wanting you. Not for a single day." Her lip quivered and she whispered, "I know." That moment broke something. Not in a painful way, but in a healing way. They were starting to see the cracks in his story. Meanwhile, Ryan's life started to fray at the edges. The financial audit revealed discrepancies that went beyond the Rebecca payments. He'd been using company funds for personal vacations, gifts, even a private loan to his brother that was never declared. His lawyer tried to push for settlement talks, but my attorney advised me to stay the course. "Let it unfold," she said. "He's hanging himself with his own lies." So I did. Quietly, calmly, deliberately. I started recording everything. Every interaction, every message, every attempt he made to manipulate the kids or guilt-trip me. He once called and said, "If you really loved them, you'd step aside. You're confusing them." I kept my voice steady. "If you really loved them, you'd stop lying." And then I hung up. One afternoon, I ran into Rebecca again, this time outside the courthouse. She looked different. Nervous. Her usual confidence was gone. "Rebecca," I greeted, my voice calm. "Long day." She hesitated. I didn't know he'd use my name like that. He told me everything was legal. I tilted my head. "You didn't think getting paid thousands a month for consulting a landscaping business was suspicious?" She looked away. I made a mistake. For a second, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. But then I remembered the picture, her laughing with him while I was losing everything, and I walked past her without another word. A week later, my lawyer called. "Sarah, the judge made a preliminary ruling." My stomach dropped. "And he's lost primary custody. You're getting the kids full-time until the final review." I sat there in silence, gripping the phone like it was the only thing keeping me upright. Tears blurred my vision, but they weren't from sadness this time. They were from relief. After all the humiliation, the nights alone, the begging, I'd finally gotten a piece of my life back. That night, I made their favorite dinner, spaghetti and garlic bread. Emily and her brother, Noah, helped set the table. No shouting, no fear. Just laughter. Real laughter. And for the first time in years, the house felt like a home again. But I wasn't done yet, because the truth still hadn't come out completely. The world still saw him as the devoted father who fought for his kids. His business clients still saw him as a respectable man. And I wasn't going to stop until everyone saw the man behind the mask. If he thought the custody battle was the end, he had no idea what was coming. A few days after I got full custody, Ryan showed up at my doorstep. No notice, no call, just him standing there in his expensive jacket, pretending like we were still some kind of family. He smiled, that empty, performative smile. "I thought we should talk," he said. I crossed my arms. "About what?" He sighed, pretending to sound calm. "About the kids. About us." The way he said us made my skin crawl. I stepped aside but didn't invite him in. 5 minutes. He started pacing. "You've made this worse than it had to be. The court doesn't need to know every little thing. You're making me look bad." I stared at him. "You did that yourself." His voice rose a little. "Sarah, this doesn't help anyone. Think about the kids." I laughed, quietly, bitterly. "Oh, I am. I think about them every time I remember how you used them as props to win." He froze. For a second, the calm mask dropped, and I saw the man I remembered from the last years of our marriage. The one who could turn cruel in an instant. Then he smiled again, forced and cold. "You'll regret this." I tilted my head. "I already did. For 7 years. Now, I'm just getting started." He left without another word. The moment the door closed, I exhaled slowly. My hands were trembling again, but this time it wasn't fear. It was adrenaline. That night, I sat in my living room scrolling through his company's social media. Every post painted him as a self-made entrepreneur and loving father. There were photos of charity events, smiling employees, community awards. And something in me snapped again, but not like before. It wasn't the pain of loss this time. It was the injustice of the lie. He had destroyed my name, manipulated the court, stolen my children's trust. And now he was using all of it as part of his image. I wasn't going to stay silent anymore. I started small. Quiet. Strategic. I reached out to an old accountant who'd once handled Ryan's business taxes, a woman named Denise. She'd left the company 2 years before we divorced, saying she couldn't work under pressure. When I called her, she hesitated at first. But when I told her I had proof of falsified invoices, she agreed to meet. We met at a coffee shop downtown. She looked nervous, glancing around before sliding a folder across the table. "I shouldn't be showing you this," she whispered. But I kept backups, just in case. Inside were copies of quarterly reports, expense sheets, and fake vendor names. Some matched the payments I'd already found. Others were new. "Denise," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "if this goes to court, are you willing to testify?" She hesitated. "If they subpoena me, yes." That was enough. I walked out of that cafe feeling like I'd just picked up a weapon, one made of paper and truth. Over the next month, I compiled everything into a single binder. Financial fraud proven. Perjury during custody trial documented. Misuse of company funds verified by accountant testimony. It was airtight. But I didn't want to just destroy him legally. I wanted people to see him for who he was. So I started leaking the truth, one small step at a time. Anonymous tips to local business forums. Screenshots sent to a journalist who covered small business fraud cases. Subtle posts in parenting groups about how charm can hide cruelty. I didn't name him, not at first. But every breadcrumb pointed in one direction. Within weeks, whispers started. His partners backed away. Clients canceled meetings. He posted some vague quote about loyalty and betrayal. And I laughed out loud when I saw it. Because for the first time in years, he was the one losing control. One evening, I got a call from an unknown number. When I picked up, a deep voice said, "This is Detective Myers with the County Financial Crimes Unit. We'd like to ask a few questions about Ryan Walker's business records." My stomach fluttered, part fear, part triumph. He continued, "We've received multiple independent reports suggesting embezzlement. We understand you may have relevant documentation." I took a slow breath. "Yes, I do." He asked if I could come in the next morning. After hanging up, I sat in the dark for a long time, just listening to the clock tick. This was it, the point of no return. And strangely, I didn't feel scared. I felt alive. The next day, I handed over everything, clean copies, organized by date, transaction type, and recipient. The detective nodded as he flipped through the pages. "You've been thorough." I smiled faintly. "You could say I've had practice." He looked up. "You realize this could lead to criminal charges." "I'm aware," I said quietly. "I just want the truth to come out." When I walked out of that station, I didn't feel like a victim anymore. For the first time, I felt like the story was finally shifting, in my voice, on my terms. That night, my phone buzzed again. This time it was Emily. "Mom," she whispered. "Dad's been yelling on the phone all night. He said something about people turning on him." I closed my eyes. "It's okay, baby. Go to sleep. Everything's going to be okay." And as I said those words, I finally believed them. 2 weeks after handing everything to the detective, the cracks in Ryan's world started showing, fast. I didn't even need to dig anymore. His business partners were doing it for me. The first hint came through a LinkedIn post. Someone from his company had commented under a vague leadership accountability article. Sometimes power hides the rot underneath. No name, no context, but everyone in that small business circle knew who it was about. Then came the local paper headline. County investigates alleged embezzlement at Walker Landscaping. No arrests yet, but the damage was already done. His spotless reputation, the one he used to make me look like the crazy, unstable ex, was now dripping in public suspicion. I didn't post anything. Didn't share. Didn't comment. I didn't have to. When lies start to fall apart, they don't need help burning. A few nights later, I was making dinner when my phone buzzed again. An email from Ryan. Subject: "We need to talk." I hovered over it for a moment, then opened it. "Sarah, I know you're behind this. Whatever satisfaction you think you'll get, it won't last. You're hurting the kids. I'm still their father. Think about what this will do to them when they find out their mom tried to destroy their dad." I stared at the screen, my hands cold. It was the same manipulation, wrapped in new words, guilt dressed up as fatherly concern. But this time, I didn't fall for it. Instead, I hit reply. I didn't destroy you, Ryan. You did. The kids will know the truth, and I'll make sure of that. I hit send, and for the first time in years, my chest didn't feel heavy afterward. The next few days were chaos for him. His employees started quitting. The company's Facebook page was filled with angry comments about unpaid wages. Rebecca. She disappeared completely, deleted her profiles, left town. Lila called me one afternoon, breathless with excitement. Have you seen the news? She asked. I hadn't. She sent the link. Local business owner under federal review for tax fraud allegations. There it was. His name in bold print. I felt my knees go weak, and I sat down on the floor, phone still in my hand. It wasn't joy exactly, it was justice. A quiet, trembling kind of relief. He couldn't hide anymore. But justice doesn't erase scars. It just lets them heal properly. That night, I heard a car pull up outside. When I peeked through the window, my heart jumped. It was him. He got out, stormed to my door, and pounded his fist so hard the frame rattled. I opened it halfway. You need to leave. He looked wild, unshaven, eyes bloodshot. You think this is funny? You think ruining me makes you a hero? I kept my voice calm. Lower your voice. The kids are asleep. He scoffed. You'll never be able to raise them without my money. You're nothing without me. I stepped closer, meeting his eyes. Funny. I've been doing pretty well since you left. His jaw clenched. This isn't over. It already is, I said, and closed the door in his face. He banged once more, then silence. Through the peephole, I watched him walk back to his car, shoulders slumped under the weight of his own downfall. For the first time, he looked small. A week later, I was called back to court for a follow-up hearing. The investigation had revealed enough that his business accounts were frozen. His lawyer tried to play the misunderstanding card again, but no one was buying it. The judge reviewed the findings and looked directly at him. Mr. Walker, based on these reports, your financial representations in the prior custody case are invalid. Mrs. Walker's full custody will remain permanent. Permanent. That word hit me like sunlight after years underground. Ryan didn't say a word. He just sat there, eyes fixed on the floor. And I, the woman he once called unstable, walked out of that courtroom with my head high. Outside, the wind was cool, soft against my face. Lila hugged me and whispered, "It's over." I nodded, smiling faintly. No, it's just finally even. When I got home, Emily and Noah were waiting by the window. They ran into my arms, both talking at once. Mom, you did it. Dad's in trouble? I hugged them tight. It's okay, honey. Everything's going to be fine now. And for the first time, I wasn't saying it to convince myself. I actually believed it. That night, I sat on my porch with a cup of tea, watching the lights from distant houses. I thought about everything, the betrayal, the court battles, the nights alone. It had all come full circle. He took everything once, my job, my confidence, my kids. But I'd taken back the one thing he couldn't buy or fake, the truth. And the truth had done what I couldn't. It ruined him. It took a few months for the legal dust to settle, but the emotional aftermath lingered longer, especially for the kids. Ryan's fall wasn't just on paper anymore. It was on TV, in the local news feed, whispered among parents at school events. And the kids, they heard every bit of it. Emily was 13 by then, old enough to Google things she shouldn't. One evening, she came into my room with her phone clutched tight. "Mom," she whispered, "is it true?" My stomach sank. "What did you read?" She turned the screen toward me, a headline from a local blog. Ryan Walker's business facing closure amid fraud probe. I sighed and took the phone gently. "Yes, baby. It's true." Her voice cracked. "Why would he do that? He always said he was helping people." I looked at her for a long moment before answering. Sometimes people care more about looking good than being good. She didn't cry. She just nodded, her jaw trembling like she was holding it in. That night, I heard her sob quietly through her bedroom door. And as much as I wanted to fix it, I knew this was a truth she had to face herself, the same way I did years ago. A few days later, Noah, only 10, came to me with something simpler but heavier. "Mom," he said, "Dad told me you took everything from him." I knelt down, eye level. "Do you believe that?" He hesitated, looking down at his sneakers. "I don't know." That hesitation broke my heart. Not because he doubted me, but because I realized how deep Ryan's manipulation had run. So I took a deep breath and said, Noah, I didn't take anything from your dad. He lost things because he made bad choices. Sometimes grown-ups forget that lies don't stay hidden forever. He frowned. Is he going to jail? I hesitated. I don't know yet. But whatever happens, it's not your fault. And it's not mine either. He nodded slowly, then hugged me without another word. That hug, that tiny act of trust, meant more than any court ruling ever could. Meanwhile, the town's gossip machine was working overtime. Ryan had been dropped by 2 of his biggest clients. His house, the one I once decorated for Christmas, was now up for sale. People who used to praise him now avoided him. And then came the day I didn't expect. He called. Sarah, his voice was hollow. They froze everything. I'm done. I stayed silent. I can't even pay my lawyer. Rebecca's gone. My partner's left. I don't even know where to start. Still silent. He finally said, Congratulations. You won. That's when I spoke. I didn't win, Ryan. You lost. There's a difference. He went quiet. Then, almost pleading, Can I see the kids? I hesitated. They're old enough to decide. But you need to tell them the truth. No more lies. He didn't answer. Just hung up. I sat there staring at my phone for a long time. Once upon a time, that silence would have shattered me. Now it just ended. Weeks passed. Life started feeling normal again, peaceful even. I picked up a few freelance bookkeeping clients, built a reputation, got promoted to finance coordinator. For the first time, I was standing on my own feet, not surviving, but thriving. Then one Saturday afternoon, Emily came into the kitchen. Mom, she said softly, Dad called. He wants to meet us at the park tomorrow. I took a deep breath. Do you want to? She nodded. Yeah, but only if you come too. So I did. The next day, we drove to the park. He was sitting on a bench, thinner than I'd ever seen him. When he saw the kids, he stood for a smile, but his eyes were tired. Hey guys, he said. You look big. Emily crossed her arms. You look different. He chuckled weakly. Yeah, well, life's been hard, she cut in, her tone sharp. For everyone. He froze. Even Noah didn't rush to hug him like he used to. I stayed back, letting them speak. This was their moment, not mine. Dad, Emily said, voice trembling but strong. Why did you say bad things about Mom? His face fell. Sweetheart, I was angry. You thought lying would make you look better, she said flatly. He swallowed hard. You're right. I was wrong. The silence that followed was brutal. Not angry, just final. Finally, Emily looked at me, then back at him. I don't hate you, but I can't forget what you did. Noah added quietly, me neither. Ryan nodded slowly, tears in his eyes. I understand. And for once, maybe the first time ever, he sounded honest. As we walked back to the car, Emily slipped her hand into mine. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. That small, silent gesture told me everything. She finally saw the truth. For years, I tried to make them understand who their father really was. But I didn't have to. He did it himself. And when that truth finally came out, it set all of us free. After that day at the park, something changed. Not just for me, for all of us. The kids didn't talk about their dad much anymore, but the silence had a different tone now. It wasn't fear or confusion, it was understanding. The kind that comes from seeing truth, not hearing it. Emily stopped asking questions like, why did he do that? Instead, she started saying things like, I don't want to be like him. And that hit harder than anything else. Noah still called him on birthdays, though. Kids forgive easier than adults. But even those calls grew shorter every year. Sometimes I'd hear him hang up, sigh, and say quietly, he still doesn't ask about school. That's when I realized Ryan hadn't just lost his reputation or his money. He'd lost connection. The thing he'd used to control people, twist stories, win sympathy, gone. Because once the lies were stripped away, there was nothing left but emptiness. Meanwhile, my life, the one he'd once torn apart, started to rebuild itself in small, beautiful ways. I moved into a new house, closer to the kids' school. It wasn't fancy, but it was ours. Every paycheck, every decision, every piece of furniture, mine. The first night there, I lit a candle on the kitchen counter and whispered, we made it. Emily rolled her eyes playfully. Mom, you're so dramatic. I laughed. You have no idea. But deep down, I knew that candle meant something. It was a quiet victory. Not the kind you post online or brag about, but the kind that hums in your bones and tells you, you survived. Then, one cold November morning, a letter came in the mail. The return address, State of Maryland Department of Justice. My hands shook as I opened it. The investigation into Mr. Ryan Walker has concluded. A formal indictment has been filed for tax fraud and falsification of records. I sank into the chair, breath caught in my throat. He was actually being charged. I thought I'd feel joy. Instead, I felt nothing. Just relief. When I told the kids, they both went quiet. Emily finally said, "Does that mean he's going to jail?" "Maybe," I said softly. "But that's not what matters. What matters is, he can't hurt us anymore." She nodded, her eyes thoughtful. Good. That single word carried years of unspoken weight. A few days later, I saw him again, at the courthouse. He looked smaller, paler. The confident walk was gone. The man who once thrived on attention now avoided eye contact. Our eyes met across the hallway for a brief second. He tried to smile. I didn't. Not out of cruelty, just closure. He came over, voice quiet. "You really did it." I shook my head. "No, Ryan. You did." He stared at the floor. "I never thought you'd fight back." I almost smiled. "That's because you never thought I could." He opened his mouth like he wanted to say more. Maybe an apology, maybe another manipulation. But then his lawyer called his name, and he walked away. That was the last time I ever saw him. The next few months were peaceful in a way I hadn't known in years. The kids flourished. Emily made honor roll. Noah joined the school soccer team. We laughed again, real, belly-deep laughter that didn't feel borrowed or forced. One night after dinner, Noah asked, "Mom, are you happy now?" I thought about it for a long second and said, "Yes. Not because everything's perfect, but because it's mine." He smiled, satisfied with that answer, and ran off to play. Sometimes I still think about the old version of me. The one who cried on the kitchen floor when she saw the divorce papers. The one who begged a man to love her right. The one who thought losing him meant losing everything. If I could talk to her now, I'd tell her this. You didn't lose everything. You just lost the lie. And in its place, you found something stronger, yourself. But as calm as things were, there was one more chapter left in this story. Because karma doesn't always come in courtrooms or headlines. Sometimes it comes years later, quietly, unexpectedly, in ways no one sees coming. And when it finally came for Ryan, even I didn't see it at first. It was almost 2 years later when I heard his name again. By then, life had moved on. I had a stable job, a savings account, and peace, real peace, for the first time in over a decade. The kids were thriving. Emily was applying for colleges. Noah was obsessed with soccer and gaming. I'd stopped checking the news about him. His story was old now, forgotten by most. But karma doesn't care about headlines. It waits. It started with a call from an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something told me to answer. "Is this Sarah Walker?" a polite voice asked. "Yes. This is Dr. Patel from County General. I'm sorry to inform you. Ryan Walker listed you as an emergency contact." My heart skipped. Emergency contact? Why? "There's been an accident. He's stable, but we need someone to sign his release papers." I froze. It had been years. Years of silence, of distance. And now suddenly he needed me. I drove there without thinking, maybe out of old reflex, maybe closure. When I walked into that hospital room, I barely recognized him. He looked older, worn down. His hands trembled as he tried to sip water. When he saw me, he smiled weakly. "Didn't think you'd come." "I almost didn't," I said quietly, staying by the door. He nodded, a sad half-smile. "Fair enough." His voice cracked. "I'm sorry, Sarah. For everything. I wanted to feel satisfaction. Vindication. Something. But all I felt was calm." "You don't need to apologize," I said. "You already paid for it." He looked down, shame clouding his face. "You were right. I cared more about winning than love." I didn't answer. He took a shaky breath. "I lost the company, the house, everything. I work part-time now. I rent a room. The kids won't answer my calls." Silence. Finally, he said, "Do they hate me?" I met his eyes. "No. But they don't trust you either." "That's worse." He nodded slowly, tears filling his eyes. "Yeah, I guess it is." When I left that room, I didn't look back. Not out of cruelty, but because I didn't need to anymore. He was no longer the man who hurt me. He was just a man living with the consequences of his own choices. That was his punishment, to finally see himself clearly. A few weeks later, Emily came home from college for a weekend visit. We were sitting on the porch, drinking lemonade, when she said quietly, "Dad called me." I froze for a second, then asked, "And?" She looked out at the yard. "He said he's sorry." He cried. I nodded slowly. "What did you say?" "I told him I forgave him," she said. "But I don't want him in my life again. Not right now." I smiled sadly. "That's fair." She looked at me, her expression soft. "I get it now, Mom. Everything you went through. The way he made you feel small. The lies. I see it now." My throat tightened. "You were too young to understand then." "Maybe," she said. "But I do now. And you're the strongest person I know." That was the moment I realized the revenge was never really about him. It was about reclaiming how my children saw me. And that battle, I had finally won. A month later, I got a letter in the mail. It was from Ryan. I hesitated before opening it. Part of me didn't want to. But curiosity won. "Sarah, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but thank you for coming to the hospital." That day, I realized something. I spent my whole life trying to win arguments, not hearts. And in the end, I lost both. You were right. The truth does all the talking. I live quietly now. I volunteer at the community center. It's not much, but it helps. I hope one day the kids will forgive me. And I hope you found peace, the kind I never could. Ryan. I folded the letter and put it away in a drawer. Not because I wanted to keep it, but because it reminded me of something important. The war was over. He had finally met his karma. And I had finally met my peace. That night, I stood outside under the stars and whispered to myself. He took everything once, but he gave me something without meaning to. He gave me strength. He gave me clarity. And he gave me the chance to rebuild a life I actually wanted. Some stories don't end with revenge. They end with freedom. And mine finally did. Life after Ryan wasn't quiet. It was alive. Every day felt like proof that I'd survived something no one thought I could. There were mornings I still woke up expecting chaos. The sound of raised voices, the sharp tension that used to hang in our house like fog. But instead, there was only stillness. It took me a long time to understand that peace can feel unfamiliar when you've lived in a storm for too long. Emily graduated that spring. She asked me to sit in the front row. "Because you're the reason I made it," she said. When she walked across that stage and smiled at me from the podium, I saw it: strength, independence, fire. All the things I once buried to keep a man happy, now living in my daughter's eyes. After the ceremony, she hugged me and whispered, "You broke the cycle, Mom." And for the first time, I cried not from pain, but from pride. Noah, now 15, was different too. He was quieter, more cautious with people. He still called his dad sometimes, short, polite conversations. One evening, I overheard him on the phone. He said, "I forgive you, Dad. But that doesn't mean I forget." I froze in the hallway, tears stinging my eyes. After he hung up, he came to me and said, "I just wanted to say it. For me, not for him." I smiled and hugged him tight. That's exactly how forgiveness works. The truth had settled in our family like sunlight through dust, gentle, steady, and real. Career-wise, I had climbed higher than I'd ever imagined. The same woman Ryan once mocked for not being business-minded was now a senior analyst for a logistics firm, balancing budgets, leading meetings, mentoring younger women. Funny, right? He used to say, "You're too emotional for leadership." Turns out, emotion was the very thing that made me capable of leading with empathy and precision. And with every paycheck, every project, every decision, I reminded myself, he didn't build me. He underestimated me. And that was his biggest mistake. A few months later, I was invited to speak at a women's empowerment conference, small event, maybe 30 people. At first, I hesitated. Who was I to talk about empowerment? I'd been broken, humiliated, stripped of everything. But then I thought, maybe that's exactly why I should speak. So I went. And when I stood on that stage and looked into the faces of women who were still in the trenches, women still crying behind bathroom doors or hiding bruises under sleeves, I told them the truth. I said, "You don't have to wait for someone to save you. You can be your own rescue." I was. There was a silence after that, not awkward but powerful. And then a woman in the front row started clapping. Then another. And another. It wasn't about applause. It was about being seen, not as a victim, but as a survivor who turned her pain into purpose. That night, when I came home, Emily was waiting on the couch with a small box. "What's this?" I asked. She smiled. "Open it." Inside was a delicate silver bracelet with one word engraved on it. "Enough," she said. "You used to say you weren't enough. But you were. You always were." I hugged her, And we both cried, the good kind of crying. Because somewhere between the heartbreak and the healing, we had built something real. A new legacy. Sometimes, when I sit alone on the porch at night, I think about Ryan. Not with hate. Not even with sadness. Just distance. He's a chapter I've closed, but one I'll never erase. Because he was the fire that burned me down, and also the reason I learned how to rise. And if you've ever been through that kind of fire, you'll understand. The woman who walks out of it is never the same. She's stronger, quieter, but she never forgets how it felt to burn. And I guess that's what empowerment really is, not loud revenge, not public glory. It's walking away without needing to look back. It's knowing you won, not because he lost, but because you found yourself again. It's been almost 5 years since the day he left those divorce papers on the counter. Sometimes, when I walk past that memory in my mind, it feels like another lifetime, like it happened to a different woman altogether. But she was me, the woman who shook as she signed papers she didn't want. The woman who lost her children, her job, her identity. And the woman who clawed her way back, inch by inch, until the mirror showed someone new. Someone free. These days, my mornings are quiet. No chaos, no tension, no pretending everything's fine. Just coffee, sunlight, and peace, the kind you earn, not stumble into. Sometimes I still think about what revenge really means. Back then, I thought it was about payback, about watching him fall the same way he made me fall. But now I understand something deeper. Real revenge is rebuilding the life they tried to destroy and not needing them to see it. Because the moment you stop caring whether they notice, that's when you've truly won. Last month, I ran into an old acquaintance from the neighborhood, someone who used to believe all his stories. She smiled awkwardly and said, "You look happy. I heard things got bad for Ryan." I nodded. They did. She hesitated. "You must feel good about that." I thought about it for a second, then said, "I don't feel good about him losing. I feel good about me winning my life back." She just blinked, like she didn't know what to say. But that's okay. People rarely know what to say when they meet the woman who refused to stay broken. Emily's in her second year of college now, strong, grounded, wiser than I was at her age. Sometimes, when she talks about relationships, she says, "I'll never let anyone make me feel small." And I smile because she learned that not from what I told her, but from what I lived. Noah's taller than me now, still protective, still thoughtful. He doesn't mention his father much, but once, while driving home from practice, he said, "You were right, Mom. The truth always wins." That sentence, simple as it was, hit me harder than any victory speech could. Because it meant the lesson stuck. They'd seen what love isn't, and in doing so, they'd learned what love should be. As for Ryan, I heard he moved to another state, living quietly, working odd jobs. Sometimes he tries to send gifts to the kids, small ones, cards, letters, birthday checks. They thank him politely. But that's where it ends. There's no anger anymore, just distance. The kind of distance built not from hate, but from closure. And honestly, that's enough. I've been asked before if I'd ever forgive him. I already did. Not for his sake, for mine. Because forgiveness isn't letting someone off the hook. It's cutting the rope that keeps you tied to their chaos. When I forgave him, I didn't excuse him. I just stopped letting him live rent-free in my head. That was the day I finally exhaled. Sometimes, when I look back, I wonder if I'd do it all again. The fight, the pain, the sleepless nights. And my answer is always the same. Yes. Because it led me here, to a life that's real, honest, and mine. He filed for divorce the week I lost my job. He got the kids, the house, and for a while even the narrative. But in the end, I got the one thing that outlasts all of it, peace. And years later, my children saw his real face, and mine too. They saw the mother who never gave up, the woman who fought back, the one who stopped surviving and started living. So, if you're watching this right now and you've ever been broken by someone who said they loved you, listen to me. You will heal. You will rebuild. And one day, you'll wake up and realize that the life they tried to take from you, it became your greatest victory. Because sometimes, the most powerful thing a woman can ever say isn't "I hate you." It's "I'm free." Clapperboard, if you were in my shoes, what would you have done? Let me know below. And don't forget to follow for more real stories like this.